Okay, Kristen, what role does physical activity and movement play in a human's brain development?
Ah, well, that's a huge question. I'll try to make it not brief, but at least concise.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
so, um, so let's look at the brain for a second. Okay, so in our brain, back here, we have the cerebellum, which many of you may have heard of. And for a long time, they felt like the cerebellum back here was related to balance and coordination, and that was about it. But now, so those are two things that are key in movement, right? But now they discovered that this part of your brain where you initiate movement and adjust your body to movement also connects to lots of places in the rest of your brain. So that those places, the rest of the places in your brain are like for decision making, memory, planning. So when you start moving, all of those things start to kick in. Now, and there's something else, um, which is circulation. So when you start to move, even if you just stand up, and we'll probably get into that later, but if you just stand up, the veins and arteries in your legs start to pump, and they pump blood back to your heart, and much so rather than if you're just sitting. If you're just sitting down, sluggish, your blood's going to sit there. You can get varicose veins, right? But if you stand up, your muscles start working, and they're the ones that are pumping your veins and arteries and getting things moving. Now, why would you care? Because um, that movement of blood also helps your brain. So it goes to your brain, and your brain can like circulate it around and use some of the energy that it grabs from the blood, which is mostly glucose, that floats around in your blood. And your brain is kind of a glucose sucker upper, if you will,
Hmm.
um, to a great extent. And it actually uses about 20% of your body's energy, even though it's about 2% of your body weight. So it's huge. So if you can get blood going up there, that's really going to help you get rid of metabolites. It's going to help you think. It's going to bring oxygen to the whole system, um, and then you're starting to rock and roll.
Hmm. Got it. Now, when it comes down to movement and just being physically active, right? Does the brain get built and um like developed based on the different types of activities that you engage in? For example, if you do cardio based movement versus strength based movement, is there a real difference on how it impacts your brain in terms of how it's being built, or is it going to be the same, like no matter what you do?
Right. Well, to tell you the truth, there isn't a gob of research on that because, as you might imagine, it's hard to hook people up to a brain scanner while they're working out.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
um, but they have done some EEGs on people. They got wires coming out of your head everywhere. Um, and they've done some research on that. But basically, um, the catch is how intense your brain is, how intense your exercise is, and how much you are enjoying it, actually. And those are the things that light up different areas of your brain. So, though, as you might imagine, those areas can be lit up with strength training or with cardio.
Hmm. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So you're saying that you like your ability to actually have fun while doing the exercise is more important in general, right?
Yes, and in terms of motivation and coming back to it and keeping, I have spent 30 years trying to get people to exercise more, so
Hmm.
um, that sometimes is a tough sell, and you really have to work at it. So yes, the key is people need to enjoy it, and they have found that When it's high intensity exercise for somebody who's not used to that, they don't enjoy it. It doesn't light
Hmm.
up their brain. They'd rather not. So, pretty much across the board, like sort of in the in between area is where people like to be.
Got it. Now, what if, I guess people do really strenuous exercise, because sometimes athletes, they kind of do workouts that they don't really want to do because it's hard on their body and mind, right? But they still do it to get better at their sport. Or if you're just a fitness enthusiast, you might want to challenge yourself and just try to go to heights that, I guess you never thought you could reach, right? So if you approach fitness like that, does it have a negative impact on your cognitive development, or no?
No, I don't believe that it does. It would have a positive impact because
Hmm.
it's it's gathering many of your resources, your internal resources, who you are as a person. They're all getting connected to
Hmm.
this task, which which brings you a lot of joy and a lot of feelings of accomplishment and
Hmm.
competency, and those things are huge. Those come down to the basic needs of humans. We all want that. We all want to feel confident, and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
so
Hmm.
that does. And um, when you're trying to get people to exercise more, they have to come to appreciate the effort. They come to like the effort, and that's what keeps one of the things that keeps people coming back. Um, that's why, um, say for instance, people sign up for a challenge or a 6 week program or even a diet or whatever, and once it's over, they haven't sort of connected with the effort of it. They've followed along thinking that it might help them, but in the end, there hasn't been a change inside of them that goes, wow, that was really worth doing. Sometimes it does, sometimes it works,
Hmm.
but a lot of times it doesn't, because people will get the T-shirt and they'll move on, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They
Exactly.
haven't really incorporated it into their being and something that they want to do for their own values and their own reasons. Maybe they want to get the T-shirt or they want to see if they can do it, but it needs to go beyond that. And that's also what athletes know about. They know that you know extreme exercise, and that's their job. They're probably getting paid too, but they love it, and they know that part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, something else that you just mentioned a bit earlier is that the reason why physical activity and movement is so important is because it really has this tendency to like fully connect the entire physiology of your brain, right? So it's not just like one specific part is being used. I mean, there's multiple different like moving parts that are helping the person stay sharp on a cognitive level. Now, this leads to something else that you talk about in your blog post, which I found pretty interesting, which is this idea that it's been mentioned that the rise in learning disabilities may
Mm.
be in part due to the lack of physical activity that people engage in nowadays, right? So, can you expand a bit more on that and tell us why lack of movement and lack of physical activity could lead to an actual like learning disability?
Okay. Well, this mostly refers to children whose brains are developing. And as we know, people don't really get abstract thought until we're in like our 20s. So there's a long
Mm,
period where our brains are still developing. And when children, unfortunately, are spending more and more time sitting down these days, they are not getting the movement that they need that can stimulate their brain activity, which is also known as plasticity. So your brain plasticity means your brain is making more connections all the time. It wants to, given the chance, it will do that. But if you're just sitting, your body is not moving, and if you're not moving, those parts, many parts of your brain are not going to be activated.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like they say that sitting is the new smoking, right? That's kind of like a slogan that people constantly toss around. Now, when it comes to standing up, like, is it because obviously, if you look at like standing desks, right? I mean, that's kind of a new innovation that people have, I guess, brought to the front to kind of combat this world that we've found ourselves in, where people are sitting literally 8, 10, 12 hours a day. If you include the traffic when they're going back home or going to work and all these different things. Now, just physiologically, you did kind of touch on this a bit earlier, but physiologically, what happens within a person's body when they simply sit versus stand? Because one might think that, hey, there's not much activity going on, right? Because if you're just sitting down, you're sitting down, and standing up. Obviously, if you're running and walking, that's different. But like physiologically, just standing and sitting, what is like the main differences that really does result in a big difference in how your brain is being used?
Okay, so if you're sitting, it isn't just your brain. So it isn't just your brain. If you're
Hmm.
sitting, like I said, your circulation in your legs, particularly, just kind of gets sluggish, and it may not return to your heart very much, and it can pool down there and make varicose veins. Um, Also, when you're just sitting and you're not up and about and moving, your arteries and veins can get stiff, and that can lead to cardiovascular disease down the road. That is not something that you want. That can also lead to dementia and Alzheimer's later, those kinds of things. You want to keep your veins and arteries supple and flexible. But if they're not, they tend to have, they get sluggish and they have certain things like cholesterol and stuff in there
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that accumulates, and it's not good. Now, the other thing is when you're just sitting, your muscles aren't working right very much. And your muscles are really driving glucose in, their movement drives the excuse me, the glucose that's in your blood into your muscles. Without that, it doesn't go into your muscles. So you can develop insulin resistance when you're just sitting there because you're you're not moving any of the glucose like you could be. So your muscles are like a catalyst to get you the insulin working in your body so that the glucose goes into your muscles and it gets used for energy. If you're not doing that, your whole system of insulin resistance and just insulin utilization will be kind of dampened. And when that happens, you can get obviously diabetic. So, and another thing is, so if you sit, you may become fat.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Not burning no calories. Yeah, yeah.
Even standing up burns more calories, right, than sitting.
Hmm.
So if
Hmm.
you're just sitting there, you tend to, and of course, if you have more fat on board, that affects your insulin sensitivity as well. More fat on board also affects how you detect hunger in your body. Your body becomes resistant to that whole system, so that it's actually leptin that gets um, desensitized. And so
Hmm.
you may eat and you're not as aware of how full you are, which is not a
Hmm.
good thing.
Yeah, yeah. So that's definitely a lot of negative effects that come from just sitting, right?
Yes.
So yeah, yeah. So basically, what you're saying is just by standing up and doing work, you can combat all this, or do you have to do something while you're standing?
Uh, well, if you do something while you're standing is good, but they
Hmm.
back in 2015 they did a study with some middle school kids, and they actually hooked up their brains
Hmm.
and they made them during the school day. They made them stand up for half of the day, and then they tested them afterwards, like regular testing, not just asking them how they felt. So answering problems, figuring out things, having to remember facts that they had learned while being taught that afternoon. And the kids who stood up did better. They just had them standing up. That was the only difference. So, as I said, you can get that. It's sort of a pump that comes just from standing up and getting going. However, obviously moving around is much better. So, um, and moving around in ways like, say, for instance, you've been sitting down for a while and they're telling you to get up every 20 minutes or so. It's good to get up and just walk around, do something that requires a different movement than just walking around. It requires some, a pathway, zigzagging around people, do some movements that you haven't done for a while or something new. So that's going to activate the cerebellum that I was talking about, and that will go up further into your brain for helping you think better.
Got it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of that, in your blog post, you talk about how it's more, I guess, it's more effective for people to move for 5 to 10 minutes consistently all throughout the day than just doing the 1 hour, I guess, workouts that people do after sitting all day long or even prior to work. Why is that? Because that's pretty. I mean, to me, it was quite shocking. I was like, wow, because like you never really think about it like that, right? Why is it more effective to just consistently move all throughout the day, even if it's, I guess, not high intensity in comparison to your 1 hour workouts?
Well, yeah, I would say that that's sort of true.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, if you're doing, say, an extended period of exercise, you do get more cardiovascular benefits. You get more triglycerides going down. You get better blood pressure
Yeah.
benefits. Um, so there is that. But standing up and just moving every 20 minutes, whatever, does get your pump moving. Um, but see, in my mind, maybe that's not enough to motivate people to do anything else. It's like, okay, I'll do that. I'm not sure it's going to feel good enough to them to get over the threshold of really changing their physiology that much, although it does help a lot. But say, I'm not sure that that's actually going to make a huge difference to people. I mean, it does help with insulin resistance, and it does not help with lowering cholesterol. Just standing up and every 20 minutes, it does not.
It does not.
Um, it does not. It does help with blood pressure, but there's some things that are not that don't come along with that unless you go to the gym. Now, saying that, or rather a longer bout of exercise. Um, Having said that, so it is, as usual, it's with bodies, things are complicated. So I would say that um, when you when you're sitting down, your whole body kind of settles in, and your muscles aren't working. And there's a thing called mitochondria in your muscles. I'll get to later, but so if you have been sitting for 3 or 4 hours and then you go to the gym, or you've been sitting, 8 hours, maybe you got up for lunch, and
Yeah.
you go to the gym, it's not enough to counteract all the sort of stagnation that has happened inside of you, inside of your cells, um, to reverse all of that. It'll help. I'm not saying it won't help. It'll help. But if you could do both, stand up
Yeah.
periodically during the day and then go do something, that would be optimal.
So why is it not enough? Like what happens in a person's body for it to, I guess, not meet that threshold needed to overcome whatever, I guess, barriers that may have arisen because of sitting all day long? You know what I mean? Because I mean, this will definitely be really confusing to a lot of people because most people think, hey, it's going to be more effective to just focus on those 1 hour workouts instead of trying to constantly move all throughout the day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I do. So yeah, moving throughout the day is going to help your insulin resistance, which is huge for not getting diabetes, which is, as we know, diabetes also can contribute to cardiovascular disease and stroke.
Yeah.
So those things are huge, and they are not to be, excused. So yes. um, so what was the rest of your question there?
No, because like why does it not counteract all of those negative effects if you commit to those 1 hour workouts, right? Because you mentioned that if you go and do those 1 hour workouts after sitting around 8, 9, 12 hours a day, it's not enough, right? But why is that though? Like that's pretty interesting to me because you'd think it would be, but like why is it not enough?
Okay. So when you're just, when you're just sitting around, you are not burning fat. Okay. So if
Mm-hmm.
you go to the gym and you go for a period of time, you do start to burn more fat. Now, um, I would say that again, it's complicated because if say you stand up, um, when you stand up, you have to start using your postural muscles. Your postural muscles are endurance muscles, and they do are because they're kind of firing all the time. They do tend to burn fat as opposed to your muscles that burn glucose. Okay, so but you want to get both of those things happening, right? So and the more is better, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So what I'm saying is it's very gray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 So basically, what you're saying is, I mean, don't just do those like 1 hour workouts and not worry about moving all throughout the day because pretty much I guess the essence behind what you're saying is constantly moving and just being consistent tends to keep your body active instead of just having it be sluggish all day long and then all of a sudden you just go and try and work it. I guess it's much more effective, especially for longevity, if you're consistently on the move and not just you know having these like 1 hour bursts of endurance or energy after sitting 8, 9, 10 hours a day, right? But at the same time you're
Right,
saying do
right.
both.
I'm
So
saying it's not
it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
useless, but it's
Yeah.
better to do both. Yeah.
Got it. Now if a person I guess wants to obviously go to the gym because as you mentioned that does like really help a person avoid different kinds of health issues and it can really counteract a lot of problems like insulin and all that stuff. Is there a certain kind of intensity or a certain point of intensity that you should be aiming for when you're working out to counteract all that?
Okay, so the recommendations that we've been hearing for a while, which are probably not going to change anytime soon, are the 150 minutes of moderate activity or 75 minutes of vigorous activity, plus 2 days of strength training. Um, and they have studied that extensively, I would say.
Hmm.
And so that is a pretty good guideline. What happens when you reach that point is you start getting the health benefits that you're looking for, right? Reduction of stroke, reduction of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, even cancer. So that's why they have said that. Now, if you can do, there's kind of like a U-shaped curve, they call it. So there is a point where you can do too much, and you will not be getting any more benefits from doing a whole heck of a lot.
Really?
So in the middle there is really what they are going for, and that's also been shown to be what people enjoy more. So
Hmm.
they're trying to get people to comply, be consistent, right?
Yeah, yeah. So do you know what that maximum point is? um like because you mentioned that there's a maximum point where you can reach, and if you do more work than that you're not actually adding more benefits, right? So like what is that maximum point, I guess, just so people know?
Okay, so the moderate is between 50 and 80% of your capacity, all right?
Hmm.
And above that is you're going to get some benefit, but not as much as you will from just doing the moderate and being consistent. Um, And the other thing, so in terms of strength training, you might want to know that a lot of times you see people at the gym, they're doing like multiple sets and they're doing it. So when you do a set of strength training, so you get some benefit here. You do the second set, you don't get as much. And the third set, you don't get as much. Um, which isn't to say, again, which isn't to say it isn't worth doing. Now, a lot of the guys, who are trying to build muscle and get stronger and all that stuff,
Yeah.
they want that. They want that extra bit because it's not pointless. They want that, so they will go for it and sometimes do 5 sets or. um,
Hmm.
but you got to know there's diminishing returns.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that's the point for, I guess, strength. If you're working out for like actual life longevity, right? And then the fourth,
Right.
fifth sets, like those are, I guess, if you just want to build muscle and have that extra amount of mass on you. But I guess in general, that's not needed because again, I mean, there's a reason why if you stop engaging in weightlifting for like 2 weeks, your body just automatically starts to get smaller, right? So I guess it doesn't want
You
to
know that from
stay. Yeah,
personal
yeah.
experience.
I do. It's just like, man, like it's so interesting. Like after, I mean, like years or months of work, and you stop for like 2 weeks or like 3 weeks, it's just like you do lose a lot of, I mean, not a lot, but like you can see a like a real visual difference in terms of what you look like 2 weeks earlier and let's say 2 weeks or you know 21 days after. You know what I mean? It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. So I guess that's really good for people who want to work out for longevity, right? Because that gives them that motivation. Because sometimes you might think that you need to work out a lot more and work out with more intensity to get the benefits. But from what you're saying, it really doesn't seem like it's much at all. It's just like it's so when it comes to strength training though, you said after the first set, the second set is not as effective or
Correct.
really?
You're not gonna. So your muscles, when you strength training, your muscles contract, right? And they and so this, but the second time they're already kind of used to it, and they're gonna not, go. They are already there. It's not a new stimulus for them. It's kind of the same. You understand that? Yeah. So then the third one, and yeah, would go like that. Um, Now, as we know, so if you're trying to build strength and build muscle, you want to stress your muscles because that then they have to repair, and it's that repair process that makes them bigger and builds more protein. So, but you can still get that with 1 set or 2 sets, right? Because you are,
Really?
let's face it, let's say I'm sitting here and I pick up a barbell dumbbell. I'm already doing more than I was, right? So my muscles are already contracting and adapting to that new weight, right? So
Great. Now, when you say one set, is it like one set, I guess, per week, or is it per workout, which I guess you do 2 or 3 times a
no,
week?
they're saying so. The recommendation is twice a week for strength training, and you want to hit the major muscle groups.
Okay.
But you could break it up and do, half your muscle groups on Monday and the other half on
Yeah.
Tuesday. And yeah, yeah.
And then
You
one to
don't
two
want to do
main
that
sets.
the
Hmm.
same muscles 2 days in a row because you want to give their muscles a chance to recover and regroup.
Got it. So like 1 to 2, I guess, main sets per muscle group when it comes down to strength is technically all a person needs for longevity, correct? And then everything after that, I guess, is again, if you're a fitness enthusiast and you want that extra mass, you want that extra strength, you can kind of go into that. But it's just wow, that's so interesting to me. Only one 1 to 2 sets. I mean, this it definitely should motivate people, right? Because I mean, doing one set a week per muscle group, like it's really not
No, two
that
sets. No,
strenuous. 1 to 2 sets
do all the muscles twice a week.
twice,
Yeah.
twice a week, and then one set per workout, pretty much twice
Yeah,
a
you could
week.
do that. Yeah, you can get away with one
Got
set.
it.
Yeah. I
Got it.
trained
Okay.
people for a long
Mhm.
time doing one set, and
Mm.
I was kind of more functionally oriented. So what I would do is like hit them with lots of different exercises that would
Mhm.
might strengthen each muscle group like in a different way.
Mhm.
Also to keep it, not so boring. And
Yeah.
um, so yeah, so that's the way I used to do, so that your muscle, I like to do it that way because then your muscles are getting trained in all the kinds of angles that may come up during your day. I mean,
Mhm.
but
Got it.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, well that's definitely new information for me because I never thought it was. I mean, like I never thought the frequency could be that low and you still get those benefits for longevity. So that's really interesting. Now, something else that you talk about in your blog post, which is something that many people struggle with, which is being actually driven and motivated to exercise, right? Because most people obviously they know they should be engaging in physical activity, but yet they kind of don't, for like whatever reason. And you talk about different reasons through our evolution as to why humans might have a tendency to be more lazy than motivated and like physically active, right? So can you go into that and tell us why that is? Because I think if people understand that, it'll make more sense to them as to why they constantly have this tendency to not work hard
Sit
or
around.
not be as active. Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me back up for a second and just
Yeah.
mention our closest relatives, the
Hmm.
chimpanzees. They're not that close, but they're pretty darn close. A lot of their DNA pretty it matches us pretty well. That if you track what they do during the day, there is a lot of sitting around. It's an awful lot of sitting
It's
around.
crazy. Yeah.
They groom each other, they eat, so. But in terms of early humans, there would be a case where you were hunting and gathering and things, and you wouldn't necessarily know where your next meal was coming from, and you were never sure how much effort it was going to take. So in between, you rested, right? So that you weren't constantly running around, and that would be an energy saving device, right? So you want to conserve energy because you're not sure when you're getting your next meal, quite frankly.
Hmm.
Um, but I would also, okay, I'm sorry, but it's kind of complicated. So, um, however, I'd like to make a plug for early humans and hunter gatherers, which was they didn't have chairs. So what we do now is very different. Chairs only came along like 5,000 years ago or so, and that was just for like really rich people. Um, so they were squatting. If they were going to rest, they were squatting, they were communicating, they were probably looking after the kids, they were making plans, they may have been working on, making some sort of a device they can hold water with. So they were never just sitting there. Well, sometimes they were obviously, but
Hmm.
they were doing things a lot, while they
Yeah.
were sitting.
Yeah.
Whereas these days we don't.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe we're working, okay, fine, but that's different. That's pushing a button. Um, yeah. So I wanted to read so a a quote from um, this man, Daniel Lieberman, a very smart guy.
Yes.
He wrote a book called Exercised. Okay. And he said, instead of walking, carrying, digging, running, and throwing, we sit for most of the day in ergonomically designed chairs, stare at screens, and push buttons.
Yeah.
The only catch is, as I've been talking about, is that we still inherited our active ancestor thrifty genes that rely on physical activity to grow, maintain, and repair our bodies. So
Hmm.
if you sit there you're not growing, maintaining, or repairing your body.
Got it. Yeah,
Which
so that's pretty. Yeah, I know, I know. Yeah, I mean that is pretty interesting. So basically, I mean the core of what you're saying is resting and trying to avoid pain that led to survival in our past, right?
right, right,
And
and
obviously, while we're resting, you're because humans come from tribes, right? So like when you're in your tribe, you're going to be socializing, doing little things with your hands. I mean, you're not just like sitting around and sleeping and doing nothing. Like, there is a bit of activity, but in general, we're wired to avoid overly, like overly strenuous work because historically that doesn't really make any sense, right? Because you want to save as much energy as possible because as you said, we never knew when our next meal is coming, which is really interesting. Now, something else that you talk about is this idea of um, confirmation bias, right? So what does that have to do with the person's ability to stay motivated and be consistent when it comes to exercise?
okay, I'm glad you asked about that because
Yeah.
so many people get an idea about themselves. And confirmation bias, let's back up. Confirmation bias is when you only gather information that agrees with your beliefs. Um, so you just, and fair enough. A lot of times we humans, we want to filter out things that are irrelevant, and we want to stay efficient. But a lot of times, in this case, it doesn't work in our favor. Um, because you may run into a situation where in your mind you hate to exercise, you've never been good at it, you were always picked last to be on the team.
Yeah.
Somebody told you you were a klutz, um, and so you just go, well, that's not for me. I'm just not that kind of person. End of story, right? Or supposing you've been on a bunch of different diets and you're trying to lose weight and they never work because diets don't
Yeah. Yeah.
98% of the time. And so you become a person who goes, well, I'm just not good at dieting or diet, I just have failed. I'm a failure at losing weight, so I'm not going to bother anymore. Um, and a lot of that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So indeed. So what we need to do is, I think, with coaching, which I've done for a very long time, you try to get people to think outside of those, you know, thoughts about themselves. Right now, a colleague of mine, who's a motivation expert, Michelle Segar, she writes about motivation a lot, and she said, we all have this thing called metacognition. In other words, we can think about what our thoughts are. So say you have that thought about, oh man, I'm a klutz. I just hate exercising. You can rearrange those thoughts and go, now wait a minute, and it may take somebody, outside of you to make some suggestions for you. But, well, maybe I can do something. Let's look around and see what I can find that I do. Or what am I doing now that I enjoy? Surely, like maybe you like to go walking around the neighborhood,
Hmm.
you know. Um, so you can build on those things, uh, and start to change your attitude toward the whole shtick, if you will, of exercise, and go, you know what? It doesn't mean I have to go to the gym and sweat and wear, gym clothes and all that. I can just start doing some things and let me find out what they are. Let me explore that a little bit. And so in terms of dieting, instead of going, well, I had somebody tell me, you can't tell me anything about losing weight. I've tried every diet there is,
Really?
literally.
Mm.
So the idea would be, well, maybe that's not the right approach. maybe, there's a lot of other ways to do it that you haven't explored, um, which of course is what I wrote my books about. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
um, yeah. So, uh, you, instead of going on a diet, which is something that isn't going to teach you much about changing your habits, um, is going to teach you that you hate dieting or that, you fail at dieting. Um, you want to make small changes, and the books I wrote give you a certain order to make those changes, and you do certain changes for a couple of weeks, and the changes that you do, like that, you have some guideline about what that change is going to be this couple of weeks, but you are the one who makes that decision about what what's that's going to look like. What is that going to look like for you? What are my likes, dislikes? If I hate broccoli, okay, fine. Find something
Mm-hmm.
else. So it's really you having to take. It requires more effort than somebody just telling you what to eat. Um, but that's the kind of thing that sticks. And you go, oh yeah, I made that choice and it worked. And I can make another one like that, and another one, and another one. And then pretty soon you are eating in a different way because you've had the guidance and the kind of overview of like where you're heading. You're heading for kind of a Mediterranean style of eating, not a Mediterranean diet, but a style of eating. So um, that was kind of long-winded.
No, no, it's fine. Yeah, yeah. So basically, what you're saying is obviously the like with confirmation bias. It's just deeply held beliefs that you just kind of stay really consistent with because human beings don't like change as much, right? Like we
I
prefer to
don't.
be consistent because again, as you mentioned, it I mean, being more consistent and having things be really predictable oftentimes led to longer survival, right? If you were crazy when you were, like 10,000 years ago, you're probably going to die if you're just constantly trying to find change and there's no you know what I mean, and there's no stability, you know what I mean? So yeah, exactly. Now, something that you mentioned, which I found quite interesting, is there's a certain order that you talk about in terms of helping people make a change and actually break out of these beliefs, right? So, can you
Mhm.
give us like a sample order that people can follow and use as a model if they want to, try and apply that principle to some other aspects of their life, just so there's more clarity. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So I start way back at the beginning, which I always say we take it from the top, which is your brain, right? So you start asking yourself now, how did this is kind of have to think about this for a while. Some of these things you're gonna have to think about. How did I come to eat how I do now? How did I come to think that that is the way I should eat? Or what is my goal here? Am I eating for pleasure all the time? Am I eating for sociability? Am I eating because my family always did that? Um, am I eating for nutrition? Um, what what is your kind of thing there? I mean, a lot of people don't even think about it; they just eat. you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of a place to start. And then another place is to slow down. You probably hear this a lot. Slow down when you eat. Pay attention to what it is instead of like, well, I'm just going to shovel this in because I want the next bite. Right? And I find myself doing that sometimes too. I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's just too good,
Having
right? You just got to keep
swallowed
eating.
this one, I'm looking
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the next one, right? So
yeah, yeah,
slow down. And then, that gives your body a chance to like tell you when you're full, hopefully. Um, and then from there, we go to planning and scheduling. So, I'm a big advocate of 3 meals a day and maybe one snack. Okay, so the deal is you want to start planning those, not just being random about it. Like, well, not really hungry right now. I'm just going to wait. And then 2 hours later, you're having a Snickers because you didn't, you
Hmm.
missed lunch or whatever. And it's important to keep your blood sugar rolling along during the day. So, and protein with every meal. Protein is something that's going to sustain your feelings of fullness for a while instead of just a cinnamon bun or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, right. Um, then so I try to get people to sit down and make that schedule and really think about how they're going to do that during their day because a lot of people have never thought about that. They don't. They wake up and
Hmm.
go, I'm not hungry for breakfast. I'll do something later. So it's important to get up and go, and a lot of times people will be like, well, I don't know what to have, right? So
Hmm.
we work out together what you are going to have. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Just, you know, so I can, a small plug here for the blue zones. I don't know if you heard about them. These are the people that live to be 100 or more in
Yeah.
certain areas of the world, and they've studied them. A lot of these folks eat the same thing every day. They're not into recreational eating. Let's
Uh-huh.
just put it that way.
Hmm.
Um, they make soup and they put stuff in it that's like from the garden that day, and that'll vary with the season. Um, but or they'll have like a little bit of cornmeal or something like that. So there's no like, well, wait a minute, maybe I should go down to the Dunkin'. I really feel like a donut. There isn't any of that. So just to know that it's possible to eat differently than you are is a big step.
Hmm.
And then awareness of how you got to that place can really
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, so that's really cool. Yeah, so basically, like self-awareness is really important in this case, right? Because you talk about first ask yourself, okay, how did I get here, and like how did these habits become a part of my daily existence? Like where does it come from? Then obviously, why am I doing this? And then once you have that awareness, you can now slow down and catch yourself when you might be engaging in habits that you don't want to engage in, right? And then you move on to the whole planning process. Now, this
Mm-hmm.
is really interesting when it comes to the people in that like blue zone as you call it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Are they eating in a similar way, or do people within that zone have different diets? And just the whole idea of eating the same thing is kind of the main point versus what they're eating. Obviously, you don't want to be eating
Oh,
donuts and candy all day long, right? But like,
no,
is it just like one specific kind of diet, or is it multiple diets within that one zone?
no, it's multiple because it's
Okay, cool.
worldwide. There's some in California, there's one in Greece, there's one
Probably in Japan.
now, but they're in different areas. So they take advantage of the produce and the food that's in that area. Um, yeah, and they just use that. They don't go down to the store and get Cheetos or whatever.
Yeah. So it just shows you how powerful being, you know, really consistent is over a long period of time, right?
Hmm.
Because as you mentioned, there are multiple diets within that blue zone. Now, you also spoke about um, having protein. Why is protein so filling? Because you can have like 200 to 250 grams of protein, and I mean, most people, if you eat that much, you probably won't even be able to have that much protein per day, right? Because it's so filling. But why is that? Because even for me, like I've noticed that because when I eat something like an egg white, it's way more filling, even though it has such like it has like such low calories, but it fills you up. You know what I mean? Why is that?
It takes your body longer to digest protein, so it's a more complicated process.
Hmm.
Our bodies are used to dealing with, say, you give it a donut, it's gonna wham. You
Yeah, yeah,
digest
yeah.
it
It's
right
gone.
away. It's easy peasy for your body, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
The
yeah.
protein has a lot more steps to it, and it takes
Hmm.
longer. And yeah,
Got
it
it.
does.
Now, when it comes to protein, do you believe in having red meat? Because I know that's a pretty hot topic, right? You know, some people are so against it, and some people like they literally eat red meat for a living. You know, like people who are on like that, like what's that diet called?
Yeah, there's
The
that whole
carnivore diet.
red movement,
Yeah,
red meat
yeah,
movement.
the carnivore
Yeah,
diet, right? They just all they eat is steak. So like, what do you think? Because I know this is really complicated. Like, do you believe in red meat? Because that's kind of a major source of protein, right? For most people when they're going down that diet.
correct.
Hmm.
Um, well, so we're talking red meat now, right?
Yeah, red meat. Yeah, yeah, just to kind of see what your
So
perspective is.
I'm a big fan. I like red meat. um, I have tried, not. I don't do much of it. I don't do a lot of it. And when I do red meat, I get the lean stuff. I'll splurge and get, the high end meat, without all the saturated fat in it or as much saturated fat. Um, and meat to me has zinc in it. It has some other vitamins and minerals that you just can't find other places in abundance. You have to eat a lot of vegetables to make up for that. Um, and other forms of protein also. The fish is having a moment, again.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, is wonderful, except for the ones that they tell you not to have too much because of the
Yeah,
mercury. But
mercury. Yeah.
um, yeah, I think that if you just eat red meat, you're missing out on a lot of antioxidants and phytochemicals that come with vegetables and fruits.
Hmm.
You're also straining your gut, because your gut has a harder time digesting red meat,
Hmm.
and it can build up toxins in there that you don't want. So you want to keep your gut going well, and that speaks to vegetables and fruit and fiber, of
Got,
course. So, yeah.
got it. Got it. Okay. Well, Kristen, we're slowly coming to an end here. We only have a few more minutes, and obviously, this is a really complicated topic. Like talking about food and like nutrition is the most complicated one because like whenever you go online, there's like information on all sides, right? So like, how do you agree? How do you not agree? And it's always changing. So that's really, but it does make it really interesting and fun, right? Because you can see what the I guess new evidence is, new wave. Because I guess 25 years ago no one would have spoke about stuff like the carnivore diet. I mean, it's completely out of the ordinary, right? So it's pretty interesting. Now, again, as we spoke about earlier, being motivated is kind of the most important thing if you want to get these benefits of eating healthy and staying physically active, right? So if you were to provide people a blueprint that they can follow to just start being consistent, how would that blueprint look? Because so many people, they don't know how to start, right? They just kind of sit around and they just kind of get overwhelmed when they start to look into this. Because as we just spoke about, it's so complicated I mean, in my opinion, it's overly complicated. Sometimes there might be a financial reason that, the whole industry has, you know what I mean? But if you had to give people a blueprint so they can just get started, how would that look?
Okay. So number one, so in terms of exercise,
Yeah.
you would take a look at yourself. So again, we're back to self-awareness, right?
Hmm.
And we're back to dumping that confirmation bias that says, "Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, what do I really think about exercise? Is this stopping me? And where's the evidence, right? So, can I change that attitude? Because in order to be consistent and actually get into it, there needs to be a change of attitude. Number one. So, and then there needs to be value of the effort. Now, you want to get some guidance. I'm a big advocate, of course, because I was a coach. um, of getting some help with that. And sometimes you can just go to a gym and get 2 sessions with a trainer and just say, look, give me the basics. Tell me where I can start, based on who I am, what my body is right now. Give me some guidance, because a lot of people have issues. Um, they've got knee, they've got back, they've got all kinds of things going on, and they thinking, well, I can't. There again, it's I can't because I've got this, I've got that. But you can work around those things if you just reach out and talk to somebody. Sometimes a physical therapist can be really helpful as well in those situations. So um, get over that. It's not me. I can't do this, and then going on. So a different an attitude change, and then a sort of an appreciation for how good the effort feels, right? And that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Yeah. So yeah, that's quite insightful. So basically, what you're saying is, first of all, change your attitude towards it. Right, it starts there. Change your attitude,
That's
change
it.
how you view it. And again, as we spoke about earlier in the episode, it takes actually such little effort sometimes to get real benefits, right? So that can be a change that people can look
Sure.
into if they want to view it differently, right? And then you talk
Mhm.
about go and get guidance. So attitude, get guidance, and then change the feeling associated with working out. Again, don't kill yourself in the gym, right? Just try and feel good when you go there.
Yeah.
Like you'll feel that high that comes with working out. So attitude, guidance, and feeling. And then once I guess if you fall into that loop, and then you'll just start being consistent. So that's
Now
yeah.
there's
Go ahead.
one other thing. So well, as somebody who's talked to a lot of people about this,
Hmm.
I worked with a PhD a while ago, and he did a lot of research on this. And one of the
Hmm.
things that helps people stay consistent is ability to tolerate discomfort. So that's
Yeah.
part of the attitude. You got to know it's going to feel weird. You may not like it at first, but if you keep on trucking, and if you don't do too much too soon,
Yeah.
you can get there.
Exactly. And that ability does get built with time, right? As you do things that aren't comfortable over and over and over again, like you'll just eventually get used to it. It's just oftentimes, the first step is the hardest, right? Because if you've been in comfort for so long, it's going to feel like a major shock to your brain, to your body. So again, that will obviously get built as time goes on, which is a huge benefit, not just with fitness, but in every other aspect of life.
It's
So
true. It's true.
yeah.
But I've
Okay.
worked
Hmm.
with tons of
Hmm.
women who, especially women who
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
want to sweat.
Really? Why is that?
Because it's uncomfortable. They're not
uh,
used to it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so I tell them, like, look, it's okay. That is one thing you can get used to, sweating, and
yeah,
um, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I guess they think it's gross or something, eh?
it's gross. Well, and then of course there's just the logistics of having to change your clothes,
Okay, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's fair.
Definitely,
Okay, fair enough.
definitely.
So that's where planning comes in.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely.
But
Hmm.
you can go for a walk at 60% of your capabilities and not sweat very much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like as you spoke about, if you just start with those small steps and build as time goes on, you'll eventually just get used to it, right? I guess it's only a major shock if you're having a drastic change and you just don't know how to handle it because you didn't build up to it. It's too much of a shock on your body. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely makes sense.
And the
But
cool thing
yeah,
is
go
you
ahead.
you
Mhm.
start, I'm sorry, cool thing
No, no,
is
go
you
ahead, go
start
ahead. No, no.
to notice that you're getting better.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
start to notice that after
Yes.
6 weeks, 4 weeks, two
Yeah.
weeks. Um,
Yeah.
there are some things that'll improve right away, and
Hmm.
some things that take longer, but you will notice those things, and then you can like appreciate that about yourself, that you did that, and that you figured it out.
Yeah, yeah. That positive feedback is extremely important, right? Because like one success will lead to some other success, and then now you're building momentum, and eventually after years of doing it, it's just you won't be able to operate without that, and that's kind of, I guess, the point that you want to get to. So it's just becomes a part of your lifestyle, and that's obviously what we're trying to do, right? So yeah, Kristen, thank you so much for this episode. This was great. Obviously, a lot of interesting information. But if people want to go and find your work, where would you go and tell them to go?
Okay.
Where'd you-
My website is at designforfitness.com. And on there, I've been writing blogs for 14 years on there about, anything and everything you can imagine having to do with health and fitness.
Mhm.
So it's all on there. I also write for Psychology Today. So that's the blog that you found. You can just go to Psychology Today and then you search for me, Kristen Carter, and up will come some of my blogs, and then you can look there. And those are a little different. I write, psychological stuff,
Yeah,
Psychology Today. But those are the two places you can find me at the moment.
got it. Yeah. So those links I do have, so I will put it down below, and people can go and check it out if need be. Okay,
And
then
one more thing, I want to plug my
go
book.
ahead. Yeah, yeah, no problem, no problem. Keep
My
plugging.
book. So I wrote one. It's called The End of Try Again. And there's a theoretical book, and then there's a workbook that goes with it. So the theoretical book kind of explains the whole process and the whole sort of approach, and why it works and why it's going to work for you as opposed to maybe what you've been doing before. And then the workbook runs you through different things every week or every 2 weeks. It tells you exactly what to do, and then you choose within a sort of a framework of what you're going to do for those 2 weeks, and then you write those down and how you felt about it, and then you move on to the next thing. So those two go together. They're available on Amazon. Unfortunately, you can't buy them together and get a discount. You have to buy them separately because Amazon doesn't do that. But anyway,
Yeah.
The End of
If you can,
Try Again and the Action Workbook.
yeah. So if you can send me those links, because I don't think I have those links. If you could send that to me, I'll also, just like put it down below so people can also go and look into that if they're interested.
Okay.
Okay then. Well, thank you so much. This was wonderful, and I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Thank you so much.